Last time I did this was for Global's Tanabata, if I'm not mistaken, and since then we've had enough celebrations to warrant an update. My opinion on the game continues to shift, and the way I want to rank characters is evolving a bit here. I'll be changing the last leg character to lose condition. I'll also be changing the capable floaters category to unreliable. Every character on this list is what I would consider meta, so none of them are bad, but the best characters in the game are still susceptible to being caught, and some of them are defined by it, right? Before we get into adding a bunch of characters from this row, which would be the new class of character I am calling the meta units, it's about time we do some housekeeping, right? Like, there's some characters up here, and I'm sure you notice, who probably shouldn't be here at all, huh? 1 second. So, this seems to be what I'm going with here. I think all of these units are past their prime already. I know Ginyu is fairly new. I know people might feel contentious about building a super team with this unit here and maybe this unit here. I know this unit here is always considered at least runnable. I don't think any of these characters are unrunnable. I think Frieza is runnable. I think the trio is runnable. I think these two are dodge or die, really dodge or die, but they're arguably runnable. It's not about what is runnable, it's about what is the best, what is meta, what you're pulling for. That's it. I don't care if they're runnable. I think they're done. With that out of the way, we can get to rearranging this part of the list before we start adding new characters. Alright? Yeah, this is what I'll go with for now. I think that Topo, his team is just getting a little shaky. Characters like the Evoken duo are just getting shakier and shakier. Sometimes, I mean, this unit can just die now. It felt like he was invincible and did 1 billion damage before. Roshi's, this dodge or die stuff is just too sketchy. Bulma, you see, gets a raise to important support because I think her synergy with one of the new units here is extremely good. Orange Piccolo is just old. He's fine in quotation marks. He's just fine. You'll probably have him because he was the best unit in the game for like a year and a half. He's just fine. There's no shame in him being down here. It just is what it is. And the three big TURs, I'd say, of this year are going to occupy the second and third pick now. I don't think they're account defining anymore because they are just making TURs much worse than LRs this year. I think I said this in a previous video. If you could do anything, if I gave you any advice and you listened to it 100%, you would never pull for a TUR this year, essentially, knowing what we know now. You know, if you pulled at the time, I pulled for this guy, I pulled for this guy, I pulled for this guy, I pulled for this guy. I don't regret it, but in retrospect, they're so much worse than the LRs this year. Unless they're easy A's, right? All right. If you notice down here, I've slowly been collecting and adding to the list of pool characters throughout the video. That's just as I remember that they're not here on this list already. So that's just a quick update. Let's get to actually adding some of these characters to a list. I think the double Brolys are both account defining. Not because Int Broly is the strongest character in the game. Not because Tech Broly just gaps completely. But I think that if you have them on your account, they are the de facto villain leads, and there's just not much to say for that, right? Eventually you're going to need villains. You're going to need villains. You're going to need villains. There are missions that gate dragon stones, and that's just something you can't really get out of. And because of that, I mean, leader skills are about as defining as you get, right? If you don't have them, you can't run the teams, period. For that reason, they go up here. The next two characters I want to talk about, I guess we'll just follow sequential order, are the Goku, Gohan, and Trunks trio. Amazing unit. I wish I could take this unit and put him in second and third pick and support, and also sometimes lose condition and also sometimes unreliable, but c'est la vie. It's just the way it goes with these standby characters. This banner unit is so good I want to put it here. I'm gonna modestly move them down. This isn't really ordered. I'm kind of doing it haphazardly, but don't worry about the ordering. I'm gonna modestly move them down to second or third pick, obviously, because I don't want to put them in this tier. You know, this is insane. This would be insane. But phenomenal. grab Gohan. Gohan's account defining. He's the most reliable damage nuke in the entire game. He's amazing. He's strong where he needs to be. And let's actually move. Let's move the UIs and such down. Just because these are new characters being added, I kind of want to make it obvious that these are the new boys on the block here. Let's say something like this. Yeah, the Gohan is phenomenal. He is arguably top 1 in the game. I would say that he's not quite top 1, but he's arguably. Top 1 seems to have a class of like 5 characters that you could argue, and it wouldn't even be that much of a stretch. He does the big damage. He has very few turns of weakness. He's a great slot 2. He standbys into a great slot 1. He's the slot 1. He's the standby, I should say. He's not the slot 1 standby, but he's the standby as it pertains to Dokkan in 2024, probably for the rest of the year. Let's switch gears here and actually talk about the just swell of super easy A's we've gotten since last time I really made this list. I'm gonna say Kid Buu, super easy A Kid Buu is on the lower end. I'm gonna call him a lose condition, even though I think he's fine, even though I think he does his job when he can. This is just a character that can get caught, unlike the 2 more recent ones, which I'm going to call important. Now, these 2 can get caught, but they are super easy A's. I don't want to get into the habit of giving characters flack, but they're super easy A's, and they're old, and they're really good for what they are, and they're important to have. They round out teams. They especially help villain teams, and even though they're definitely deserving of being in this like unreliable tier, their job is to tank normals and float off and provide, buku support. You probably don't want more than 1 running around on your team unless you're doing a juicer setup where you just try to pump as much damage as you can, but you're not really feeling bad. I think once you get to Kid Buu level is when it's like, wow, this character will die. He will just die. Swinging back over to the worldwide download celebration, I want to put Turles in. I want to put Turles in a little bit unreliable, but I do want to say that Turles is great. His issue is that he's a bit too teamless, too lost for my taste. I think the reason he's unreliable is because he alters the chemistry of the team so much that it's very noticeable that he's there, making the rotations more unreliable. Even though he himself is great, he is a meta unit. Remember, all of these are meta units. He is just a bit unreliable for my taste. I'm also going to grab this Broly, who is a de facto 2nd and 3rd pick if you're building a team with movie bosses or uncontrollable power or wherever you can fit him. He floats off. He doesn't really die to normals. He can get caught by supers. It is what it is. His teams have a ton of protection for him, and he obliterates the boss. He does about as much damage as you could possibly imagine without having to have been in a standby to access it. And again, even though he has his flaws, I think he is a character that when you start building a team for him, you immediately go, that one, I want that one. I'm going to move on to the easy A girlies here, and I'm going, this might be contentious. I'm going to say Videl and Kefla are both unreliable. And again, it's not because they're bad. It's not because I hate the characters. I don't really like Kefla, I guess, just because I wish this character was written better. But, she's fun to use. She's fun as hell to use in the game that we're playing, so I'm going to rate her on the game. I think the issue is that they're the same exact character, essentially. One takes time to charge up, and dodge or die in the good year of our Lord 2024 is just really frustrating to play with. A lot of characters right now, they're so strong without needing to gamble every single time they're on screen. So why would I take this risk when I could just not bring these characters? I think that's the definition of like an unreliable character. A character who could be a lose condition, but they're not really to this extent of they'll just die. They're just a kind of sketchy include. You know what I'm saying? Next, we're going to take a look at the brats here, the easy brats, and I'm gonna say they're in about second or third pick. I want to move them up because they're very recent. I'm gonna say they're about second or third pick. They're phenomenal, right? Like, they impress in a way that is so overt, so apparent. They don't need anything. They don't need anyone. Them boys get it done. Like, I'm so on board with the brats here that I could put them up here. I promise you I could. I'm actually being conservative. I'm gonna put them right here. But let me tell you something. I think this Easy A is crazy for right now. It could change in a week. It could change in a month. It could change in a year. Well, obviously it's going to change in a year. But I think they're phenomenal right now. I don't think they need any help. I think it's so funny that you can't even access their full passive or whatever because of Krillin not being a character that's around. And it's still nuts. It's still crazy. They don't have help and they're still amazing. Are you kidding me? Next on the list are the two post-worldwide download celebration Easy A's here, the Mazer Easy A's, and you know where they're going, I think. I don't think I need to bait the reveal too much here. Fusing Gogeta and Easy A Fizz Janemba are phenomenal. If anyone looked at Janemba's kit and convinced you that he'd have no home, that he'd have no team, that somehow he'd struggle to make it on teams, or he'd be worse on those teams than anything Broly and Int Broly could come up with, you need to start disregarding their opinion a little bit. This character was so obviously powerful, so obviously obtuse in the landscape, that you'd have to be crazy not to think he'd just be an auto include. Like, how do you not get this character on the team? All of these other characters that people try to convince you, you know, this guy right here, this guy that's so cool that does all the damage, why would you want him on the team over Janemba? Because he does big damage? Who cares? The whole team does damage. If someone told you that Fizz Janemba wasn't an auto include because you couldn't activate big bad bosses or this and that, it does not fucking matter. You need to have a real talk with them because they do not have your best interest in mind, Playboy. They are against you. They're trying to hurt you. Next is, of course, the Gogeta himself. This character is probably the best character in the game. He could be one of those characters that ages out at some point, just drops off a cliff. Like, maybe things just start hitting base Vegeta and base Goku way too hard and he drops off a cliff. It becomes way too hard to get the passive activated or the transformation condition activated. Sure, it could happen. And it's probably going to happen at the 10th anniversary. But right now, them boys are different. They're different. It's too easy to get into Gogeta. Nothing's threatening them in base, which is usually the problem with transformation characters like them. This is an insane character. I considered pulling on the legendary banner for them. You hear me? I considered pulling on that terrible bait banner that you're never supposed to pull on, that has no like discounts or anything. I considered it because they're so good. Yeah. And last but not least, it's the new boys. I'm gonna consider AGL Namek Vegeta unreliable. I think that he doesn't offer enough Rainbow Orb changing support, healing, blah blah blah. He doesn't offer enough to be an important support. I don't really think he's a second or third pick. I don't think you're building a team and you're going, oh man, I need to get AGL Planet Namek Vegeta on here. I just don't think you're doing that. You're either building a team for him, at which case you're building him for his lead, at which case he'd be something like a count-defining because he's, you know, a leader. Or you're building him for a fun showcase, but you're not putting him on teams because you're like, oh, I need to get him in. I need to fit him in somehow. It's just not happening. Coupled with the fact that this character kind of stacks slow and he could just die and his passive resets every turn, so he could just not get orbs and die, and nah. This character, on the other hand, is right up here somewhere. Again, this is not ordered. I'm just doing this for recency. Obviously, there are some inconsistencies, but, you know, just as a clear delineation of, like, these are the more recent units, typically, and these are not. Piccolo and Gohan look really good. Right now, they can't really be threatened to the extreme that a lot of characters like them can. And that's enough. And in a week or two, when that's not the case, or a month or 2 months, where bosses are hitting for like 8 million turn one and they kill you even though you have 95 damage reduction, sure. Sure. Piccolo is really good. I think there are enough opportunities to get into Piccolo because Gohan can survive long enough. That said, we will see the holes in this character before we see the holes in a character like Janemba, probably. You know what I mean? Janemba will probably be fine when this character is getting packed up, and that's just kind of the way that goes. And yeah, that is the meta list for October. I'm gonna say about the 15th. It's about the 17th right now, but let's say the middle of October 2024. I think that every character on here is pretty good. Like I said, if they're on here, they're a good character. I might have missed a few. I looked through the list several times. I don't think I missed any standouts. If you think I did, put some in the comments. Maybe I should add them to here next time I do one of these. If you like this video, tell me if you think if I'm just flagrantly wrong. If Cell Max don't even deserve to be an account defining anymore. I think he's on his way out, funnily enough, but tell me if I'm wrong. Subscribe to join the club. Like if you like the video, like I said, we're all gonna make it. Peace.